Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another XTIVIA Live Session, Transformative Data Management, presented by Jim Orrison. My name is Alex Killian, and I'm the video producer on XTIVIA's marketing team. Before we dive into our live session this morning, I would love to tell you just a little bit about our company. Since 1992, XTIVIA has established a proven reputation as a company that delivers leading-edge IT solutions and technology support for our clients' specific requirements. Our service areas include mobile app development, BIDW, CRM, ERP, data management, web portal, digital experience consulting, and EIM services and solutions. XTIVIA's success stems from a demonstrated ability to deliver deep expertise via professional services. We try to empower our clients to leverage their chosen technology successfully, competitively, and profitably. And XTIVIA has offices in Colorado, New York, New Jersey, Missouri, Texas, and Virginia. And today on our live session, we are joined by XTIVIA's Director of EIM, Jim Orrison. Jim has a passion for solving business problems using data as the fuel and technology being the fulcrum to move the world. His focus is to understand underlying business problems, abstract issues and options, gain solution and consensus, and then delegate the execution to see teams celebrate success that can be achieved. Currently, Jim is the practice manager for XTIVIA's data governance discipline, principal consultant for many strategic clients, and is a student in the Harvard Business Analytics program, class of 2020. Jim, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Alex. Pleasure to join. Okay, well, one thing that I'd like to be able to talk with is when I thought of data management, the topic of transformative data management, 20 years ago, I would have been immediately thinking about relational database systems. And, basically, a data warehouse, a few data marts come in, how do you cleanse, how do you transport the information? It was a fairly normal world that we were dealing with at that point. Today, things have gotten much more richer and more complicated and often very confusing. And part of the reason why we do this is because the why. I mean, we've moved ourselves into capabilities to be able to not just worry about fancifully, well, we're going to have terabytes one day of storage. Now, petabytes exceedingly is a reality in the world. And how do you manage data of that magnitude and derive value off of it is a paramount thing to us. I think most people, when we talk about digital transformations, I gave a definition here on the screen about it being a part of an organizational system change-out, process change-out to engage your customers to facilitate information exchange. That sounds lofty and good. However, it is really the objective in creating objective ubiquitous data and processes, getting to market responsive architectures, and to helping you with your customers and suppliers. It's sort of a natural discussion now. This was sort of eye-opening 3 years ago. It's natural now, except for the why is not necessarily understood at this point. And to a point is a calling card for everyone to be aware of. That one thing, Alex, you mentioned there was about me getting involved in this Harvard Business Analytics program. This is a strategic shift of even Harvard Business to be thinking differently of how to engage students and, more importantly, how to analyze businesses, that the business model of those who are focusing on listening to the customers and keeping on operational excellence of the last 40, 50 years is a paradigm that actually sinks companies right now. And is a concern that what is really being injected here are platform capabilities, platform companies, Uber, Lyft, Apple, those are platform companies. And what they're doing is building a network effect about people participating, but they're participating very quickly in high volumes, millions quickly, that if they really do inject themselves into your ecosystem, your competitive ecosystem, you've really lost the game. So to a point, part of the underlying message to any company is if you're not going after a digital transformation for an offensive move, you need to be prepared as a defensive move, because folks are going to look for disruption by leveraging these technologies in your space at this point. So therefore, what is making all of this sort of a component as we're going on? There's three things that I've been observing in the market, and I use sort of simple analogies to help people with it, is that I think about terms of information friction. Information friction is really where I'm sitting in the aspect of our ability of my systems not to be able to integrate and move forward, and be able to that I've got myself when two systems have inefficiencies between them, but basically my data and my processes are locked together. And I have my architectural framework that keeps me going together, and basically the customer systems. It sounds like a opposite of the digital transformation components, but is intended to help people sort of understand that you really are lacking governance in place to be able to make these moves and be agile. Is that when you're really having almost the organization working against itself or actually not assisted itself, you're going to have friction, and friction doesn't allow you to be fast in the reaction response to the market. The next piece I wanted to go over was regarding the data isolation. Data isolation, in my mind, is the aspect of the situation that more than one asset is not readily available to use and consumed by something else. This is where immediate benefits don't occur as going on. So the ability to redirect or modify information, the ability to sort of consume new third-party services or notable integration requests or the backlog of integration is in here. Now, the data isolation tends to occur is when you've got these huge, beautiful assets that should be able to help each other, but just by the physical reality, they are not taking it on. And again, that is a data management challenge, but you have to call out the problem as to what am my symptom I'm getting to know, do I really need to be addressing that data in motion type of a challenge. The third one that I tend to go into talking about is an opaque understanding of information. This is sort of the illusion that you got strategic answers that are readily available. There's plenty of times I'm working with senior executives who think they should be at the cusp and understanding things. They just need the analysts to be in confidence to give them the information, let them move forward. We're moving ourselves into where machine learning, predictive analytics, AI is an asset that everyone expects to be using, but it's really understood that only about 50% of the companies in today has the data management infrastructure to take advantage of those tidal waves of capabilities. So therefore, you got yourself so the other 85% of the world is where they have multiple teams answer the same question differently. They don't have organizational owners. They have hesitation by leadership to authorize things. In other words, by authorizing it, they realize they're making a decision. They're afraid they're going to make the wrong decision. The unfortunate thing is they get themselves handcuffed in what they're doing. So those three things, information, friction, data isolation, opaque understandings, is the problems that we're seeing in the market. Now, why are they doing this? Is I get down to what I call the omni-channel delivery. Is that in a traditional world of where I was, I said, let's talk about data management 20 years ago, is you got yourself your legacy systems all nicely contained on an on-premise environment. Your data stores are sort of understood and respected, and they tie over to maybe some warehouse metrics and analytical cubes that gives you insights, and your customers, suppliers will work as a nice ecosystem. That's 20 years ago. Go forward to where we are now, is I now have the components with regard to I'm injecting web services, commercial off-the-shelf products, third parties, etc., that those new injections need to complement this legacy that I've got in front of you. And I'm putting myself in more platforms like CRM, my payments, my loyalty programs in the cloud, so that information there. So now I'm going from the traditional data warehousing type of capabilities now to where I got big data, MDM, data lakes, these type of things that people like the words that they're hearing, but they're actually not understanding what they're going into. I've seen fairly companies invest in these technologies, not with a strategy. Now, the strategy needs to drive back to what I'm trying to illustrate about the omni-channel. The omni-channel is the way that you want your customers, your suppliers, your employees engaged in your company, but whether it's going through a storefront, through the web, through a mobile experience, through a third-party partner, it is really going through the same components. So just like in this illustration, my plumbing of platform integration is keeping it going, but the platform integration has to be smart enough to know how to sync, source, authorize, and move the data forward. So these are the components going in. So what I've really got myself into, what I'm sort of I think about the transformation of data management, is the component that we're in a strategic shift. We're no longer in doing a systems of information or systems focus and all my components. I'm now thinking about the information. Everything around these platforms, around these tools, are not just a replacement of systems. They're a different way to surface and publish information to your ecosystem. And I think that what's going to happen in our industry for the next 10 years is to focus on that information flow and people not care about the source of where it came from and where it's going. They just want to make sure it's governed, that people have it sanctioned. They don't have to second guess where to go and how to go to it. So therefore, the formulary that I would be starting to recommend to people, if you see these problems in your organization as to what you're doing, is how do you get yourself led out of it? Well, the bigger piece that you're trying to do is first understand the business, have a 360 view of your customer, your products, your organization. You understand the relationships within your data. You basically know how to ingest that data. You basically have a cleansing of it. You have sanctioned workflows. This is the way that I would look upon understanding my business. And then I know when I'm trying to go to predicting the future. So therefore, the things that you are hearing a lot of buzz for around machine learning, artificial intelligence, visualization, great. We're all in it, but the key to it is knowing what are these check boxes you're trying to do as executive leadership to put back over here on IT leadership and data leadership to make sure you're going. If you're a chief data officer, you need to be thinking, what are these things I'm advocating to my management as to these are the steps I have to be in, but the why has to be there. So the key component that I sort of actually drive out on this slide, I would sort of emphasize, is that seek the network effect of platform companies. This again is the idea that incremental addition of consumption of people, of participants, of suppliers is a net zero cost. So the ability for you to service 10,000 customers, 100,000 customers, if you have your data platforms correct, is a net zero cost to you. The big thing you have to do is, do you have the infrastructure to support going from 10,000 to 100,000 customers? So once you have these components and checklists in place, you start to say, how do I begin? Well, the platform integration and where do I begin is chaotic. Whiteboard it, have yourself an enterprise architecture. There's plenty of ways of going on. But this is sort of what I feel like I've seen plenty of times going into organizations as to what they consider the current state. The key to it is understanding those components, but you really are driving yourself out to an enterprise architecture. So the remediation of the solutions to this strategy moves forward into thinking about a very simple data lifecycle. Is that I think in terms of the chaos of what I have on the whiteboard, where do I create my data? Where do I store my data? Where do I use my data? How do I share it? Those are the 4 ABCs that you should be having as an organization to know that I'm managing my data. But the key to this is that those are the 4 that people remember because they have to do it in a life cycle. However, the other thread that has to be dealt with here is to archive the data and to destroy the data. Is that those are policies that should be in place. And if you don't have those policies in place, then you really are sort of missing out on the capabilities of what you're doing with the main life cycle. And you are really sort of dealing with a compliance issue if you don't handle that bottom thread of this data life cycle. So if you recognize and accept this paradigm, you notice how the complexity we have here, you talk about the simplicity of 4 real stages of a data life cycle. I advance that into a framework of one to say, is not say that what I've done here with XTIVIA is I call it the golden record of how to handle a data strategy, but I put those 6 items into what are the things that you do as a checkpoint for an organization. So you really help people think through, what is my governance around here so that my code creation is good, my storage elements are good, I know what the type of things I'm trying to do here. This is again, a framework, a checklist upon making sure that your data management strategy is in a good shape. But once you agree upon these type of things of a framework, you move yourself into a data ecosystem. This is how the chaos becomes simplicity, that you start thinking about what are the big things within my organization architecturally that you'd want to have to be able to manage information and support your digital transformation. Just because you check these boxes, you buy tools, and you put these tools in, you are still failing on that strategic shift I emphasized a second ago, which is really that we have to stop thinking about systems and think about information. So this thing from the Internet of Things and my line of business, my third-party services over here on my sources, all the way to the consumption, is a ecosystem that one is thinking through. And this is one of the most paradoxical type of challenges for chief data officers, chief operating officers, chief financial officers in today's world, because you really are now just not a service provider in IT, you are a strategic leader within the organization. So having these things in place is sort of what really gets me down to the remedy to that transformation of my data management for the digital future of what we're dealing with. So I definitely appreciate it. Alex, is there anything else that we would like to go into?
Well, so how can we learn more about all of this?
Okay. the component of what I would like to do is, and know more about where you're going to go for your organization and such, is, you got plenty of resources and availability on the web. I mean, if you're watching this on a YouTube channel, you sort of know how to sort of use the web as an asset, as a resource. I have found myself very basic information and extremely good through things like LinkedIn and other type of things on YouTube, just to get oriented to the topics. However, you got to talk and listen to the experts. It's not to say that they're omnipotent, but listening to whether their experiences, their wisdom, their insights, things help you a lot. I mean, so third-party papers that are coming across, things like, authorized type of components from Forrester, Gartner, et cetera, always eye-opening, but going to conferences and participating in that thread of communication is good. For example, XTIVIA is going to be at the Data Architecture Conference. We were just at the MDM Data Governance event, and we're sharing out our ideas and having discussions with customers and other vendors. And again, we're listening to what they're having to say too. And sort of collectively, we're advancing the ball along this way. The key message I have about transforming your data management: you don't just react to the pain at hand. You have to take inventory of what's going on, know what's going on in your industry, and be proactive in your positioning for the future. Because if you recognize you're in a problem, in today's world of the digital transformation, it may be too late to retain your customer and your business.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Lots of really good information there. For more information, you can also check out Jim's last live session, which is linked below, as well as XTIVIA's blog, our ebooks, and success stories on our website, xtivia.com. We're also available for conversations and questions around these topics, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. And don't forget, XTIVIA Live Sessions are happening every fourth Thursday of the month, so make sure to tune in for the next one and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of these resources. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.